What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 10 of the OYL podcast. That stands for Own Your Life. I'm here with Zac Lindsey. This is an amazing dude. So we're excited to have him here. He's been with us for a little while now, over half a year, and he won't tell you this, and he never acts like this, but people just look up to him. He's just that type of person, awesome guy, and we love having him around and what he does for the community. And he's got a really cool story that we're going to talk a little bit about. So excited to have you, Zac. I mean, first question is like, what made you want to come to the gym?
Thank you again for that solid intro and for all the nice things you say. I think people look up to you too. One of them is me, so thank you for that. But yeah, so what got me going to the gym is I was doing CrossFit in Watauga at CrossFit Watauga. I lived in North Richland Hills at the time, and I was relocating to Boyd, and I just started Googling, different gyms, and obviously OYL popped up, and I kind of worked just on the street, and I was looking at one of their gym called Saddle Up, and I decided, hey, I'm just going to go in there, and I met with you first. Super, super nice guy. It was all about me doing the intro. It was, I'll never forget, I had no idea you're the owner. To this day, I'm always like, what? I didn't know you guys were the owner until like after a month of going there. I thought that was really cool. That it was all about me, and I felt very included. And I think I signed up for the 7-day pass, and then it was I think day 2.
Yeah, it was.
Day 2, and I was like, dude, run the card, 6 months in full, let's do this. I remember just feeling like extremely welcomed, and I felt like I had never been to a gym. I haven't been to a lot of gyms. I'm not by any means like an expert, but I just felt like the coaches were there to coach. Like it was, like you guys are serious about that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I really enjoyed that. Just showing up, doing what you say, and having results. It's pretty fire.
Yeah. So what do you like about CrossFit? Like, what interests you about doing CrossFit?
Besides the in your face things like having good health, feeling good, I would say it's a community. I would say, and not the community aspect of it being a club, but more of like whether you're 500 pounds or you're 12 years old or everything in between, or you're super fit or you're not, there's no mirrors in CrossFit. CrossFit to me is like the great equalizer of like fitness. It's like, it doesn't matter what level of fitness you are or feel like you aren't. Like you can go there and you can work out side by side, and you can't measure like the level of effort inside someone. Only you can measure that. And it's like when you're in there and say for instance, I'm rowing, right? Someone's rowing next to me. They might think, oh, this dude's, rowing like insane, but
he does row insanely fast.
But that person next to me is also rowing. Like our effort levels inside of us, inside of our vessels, our bodies are the same, like it's matched. And when I get off of that and I look that person in the eye, I'm like, man, yeah, it was a good one. They're like, yeah. And I was like, we just experienced that same thing side by side. And I think it's just probably the most amazing feeling I get to feel. And you can't do that anywhere else. Like you can't walk into a normal gym and, you're never going to get that eye contact after like a CrossFit workout, where it's like, hey, that was for real.
Yeah. And Zac's a people guy, man. Like when he talks about this, like that's every class he shows up, like that's how he is with people. Like, and so that's why I asked the question, because, Zac's a great participant in the community. Both he comes to do the thing, but he supports other people doing the thing. And it doesn't matter where they're at, and he believes in that. So it's really cool to watch. I don't know if you ever anyone tell you that, but that's how you are in class. And it's like really cool, because that's when I started CrossFit, that's what I liked about it, was that we did this thing together. It didn't matter where you were. Right. Like I worked out with Dr. Decker. He was in his 70s. He was our coach's dad. Right. And it was just fun, Yeah.
So and you both get after it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, another thing Zac and I have in common is kind of like our past. Right. A lot of people have heard about mine, but I would like for you to share a little bit about that. I mean, because I think we kind of both fit the bill of like, if we don't say it, most people don't think it. If we don't walk around and like let people know where we were, most people are like, no way.
Yeah, that's true.
So to start with, tell me a little bit about what life used to look like for you.
So I would say I'm not like super fit now, but I was extremely overweight. Just did drugs for almost the majority of my life, adult life for sure. And just, I don't know if the word would be like a hoodlum, maybe. I don't know. I lived that life. Like I did a lot of things that, you know, I'm not proud of. But that was, you know, that was my journey. And luckily God pulled me through it all, you know, but like I have some stories, man, where it's like that by the grace of God, I am here today. But yeah, man, just, you know, selling drugs, doing drugs, living that like street life, I suppose. Which I tell people now and they're like, there's no way possible. And I'm like, that's all God, man, because I was really, really, really bad. And I have close friends who have literally told me, they're like, I believe in God now because you were such a bad person that I'm freaked out by like your transformation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, just doing drugs from like 18 till I think like 27. It'll be 3 years on August 3rd. So still pretty fresh, I feel like, in the recovery. But I remember just doing drugs for like, you know, maybe 7 or 8 years. And it was just kind of a party, you know, just drinking, maybe doing some, you know, cocaine. Can I say cocaine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, doing some
Yeah, you can tell the
cocaine.
whole story, bro.
Okay, and all of a sudden it was like, you know, it's 2 p.m. and I'm like buying cocaine still. Like, and I'm like, it's like a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this isn't a party anymore. Like, no one else is doing as much as I'm doing it. I'm needing it to function. I'm very irritable without it. I'm just basically my life consisted of working because, you know, I had a family and to pay the bills, which I've always done, luckily, and drinking and doing cocaine. It was almost like that was my main job,
Mm-hmm.
was doing that. And then at the very tail end of my addiction, I started getting a little bit into methamphetamine, which basically is like, you know, you see people on the side of the road and you see people who are addicted to drugs and you might judge them or think this or that, you know, maybe scabbed up or something. But it's like, I've felt what they felt like. And I've been in that dark depth where like nothing matters. And unless you've done drugs, you don't get it. Like nothing matters. Like nothing matters. Not the way your parents are looking at you. You know, your kids could be telling you something like, I had it all. I had, you know, family, I had kids, parents, the support system to stop. But it's like, you know, drugs are like straight up evil, man. It's like, it's just, and nothing really could pull you out of that, you know. Luckily, again, by the grace of God, pulled me out of it. But yeah, I think about my life sometimes, and I'll tell Chelsea, and sometimes that I'm like, I can't imagine, you know, my life turning out like this. You know, the people I have in my life and the friends like you, and then, you know, meeting an incredible girl like Chelsea, and just my kids being healthy and just not being in prison. I'm like, wow, because I would just, man, I was bad on drugs,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, dude. I think about it all the time. I'm like, how did I not get incarcerated or die? Like I do genuinely wonder that.
Oh, man.
And because you think about some of the situations you're in or what you were doing, and you're like, dude, like that would kill a normal person, or like there's no way other than some sort of divine intervention that
Oh, yeah.
that doesn't happen. So
Oh, yeah.
so you know, and I think you're right. A lot of, if you don't do drugs, you don't really know.
Yeah. It's not like an exclusive club, like, oh, you don't know. It's just like good for you, for sure. But there's nothing like it. There's nothing in my life that has taught me more about the depths of like the soul, besides like, you know, reading scripture and getting close to God and fellowship, for sure. But there's there's another side of that where you can really see, you know, you get to really see yourself for who you really are, like what you're capable of. Like, wow, I'm capable of stealing from my parents. I'm capable of not taking care of my children. I'm capable of, you know, hurting people or stealing. Like, and then you know, that's not normal, but you become capable of it to facilitate that need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way I think of it or try to describe it is like, just like you wake up in the morning and you become hungry and eventually you eat breakfast, like that is what your need for drugs turns into. It's like it's a normal mechanism.
Oh yeah.
And then the other, which kind of what you're talking about, the big piece that lies on top of that is all of a sudden you will compromise anything that you may mentally think you want to preserve, but you'll attack it for the sake of your addiction. So whether that's stealing or lying about your family, neglecting, you know, being a criminal, you know, because I was in the same stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind,
Absolutely.
you know, kind of tell me a little bit about like when you were in the midst of this, what it was like when you were working in the oil fields and all that stuff.
Oh man, great question. So
Because I think people need to know this,
Yeah.
and realize that both Zach and I, when we were in our stuff, like we were real people living lives, like in this world. So like this stuff doesn't just, it's not like we just go in a corner and do it. Like we're still trying to like live in the world, but also this is how we live.
that is very true. Yeah. So most folks don't know this about me, but I worked in the oil field for 9.5 years, from 19 to just a little over 2 years ago. I'm 31 now. Yeah. So, you know, luckily I was a supervisor there and had a work truck, just like an oil field guy, like just what you think. And, you know, making, you know, decent money, good living, working 2 on 2 off for sometimes months at a time. And in the beginning, I'd always tell myself, I'm not going to use while I'm on site, you know? And then when I got home, I was 2 weeks off. So it was just, you know, party time. But at the tail end there, I mean, I was, you know, snorting lines while driving like the work truck, you know, on the way to the job site, and like drinking like hot beers, you know. I was hallucinating at one point, thought people were chasing me. I mean, I don't know how I didn't get arrested. But then I had bills to pay, and I had just my one daughter at the time, and luckily her mom was good at that time, and my parents helped out. But I just you just kind of mask it. You just kind of, it becomes normal after a while. That's just what you're doing, you know. Like I do drugs. That's just what it is. I didn't really care what anyone thought. I think using drugs makes you one of the most selfish people, because it's just like it turns whatever switch in your brain that cares for others completely off almost. You know, only time I liked other people or loved people, showed love, was if I was coming down, if I needed something. You know, I need something from you, like I need money, or I need a place to stay, or just most of the time it was just I need sleep, like for like 24 hours. But I functioned. Yeah, I was a supervisor. You know, I worked hard. I've always worked hard. And I just hit it pretty well. You know, I think people too, like you're very likable. And I think if you're naturally likable in your personality, they almost don't want to believe it. Like, oh no, he's just partying, or he's just drinking, or they don't want to believe, you know, that person's going down a pretty dark hole pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think psychologically we don't want to admit to the emotion that causes us, like the hurt or the sadness when we see someone that we think that shouldn't be them.
Oh yeah.
And then we see that all the time in like Americanized stories of like the high school sweethearts that break up, or like the athlete who's on their way to things and then they get a tragic injury and their career's ended, right? Like we don't like to admit that stuff. We like to come back sometimes, but like there is this level of like, it's like sad to see, because I had a lot of support growing up too, because people ask me like, well, why'd you get into it? I was like, well, it wasn't because I had a bad home environment. You know what I'm saying?
Which for me is like astonishing, because so mine's is like, I grew up like no one graduated high school, no one went to college. I saw people, you know, cooking dope on the stove. My parents both went to prison for selling drugs. Like it was a family trade. And for us to meet later in life and that just shows you like, you know, the epidemic that drugs actually are. It touches everything.
It's no respecter of persons.
No.
Yeah. And then there's people who, like, I'd say I was lower middle class, and you had, you know, your experience with the background of like it being a normalized part of lifestyle. And then there's people who in the white collar world, and they're going through the same thing. Like it doesn't matter. It just it may wear a different suit or different clothes, but it's the same thing.
Oh yeah. I knew a girl who, I don't know her boyfriend, but she was, you know, she had like a trust fund, but she had like $60 a day smoking heroin, you know, and just didn't eat. She just didn't eat. And I was like, you know, you can have it all or be born with nothing, like you're saying. And it has no respect for any person and no regard for human life.
Yeah. And you end up in the same place. Well, and I don't know, you probably saw this. It doesn't really matter what drug you're using.
It doesn't.
There's a point where, like you said, like you kind of learn about the depths of human depravity. Like because you realize that you are the one that's really just living at the expense of everybody else for your one desire.
It's like super primal almost. It turns into something that's, I guess and the weird part is it's in everybody. Like if you sat down and put, heroin in somebody, they're going to get addicted to it. You put meth or cocaine enough times into them, they're going to get addicted to it, which is, it's kind of saddening to think that it's just so available. I couldn't find any now. I wouldn't try, but back then it was very easy, Yeah. It's tough stuff. But luckily, again, by the grace of God, man, I have done some wild stuff and got away with it. I don't know how.
Same. But now things are different, right?
Things are much different now.
Thanks for sharing that, though. Like, I think that's something that I like in this format is, and Zach and I talk a lot about this.
Oh, yeah.
And we're just like, man, like, did we really live like that? And it's almost like we have this like vision into a thing that some people, and you said, good for you. Yeah. You don't need to go find out.
No.
You don't need to. Like
at all.
Your ignorance is a blessing, right?
Huge blessing.
And so, but there is a reality that him and I recognize, and sometimes we're like talking to each other and we're like, God, that was bad.
And it's wild too. I mean, there's been times where like you and I will be having like a moment around like, family or friends, and we just kind of, you and I can relate to it. We're sitting there and it's almost like this bubble in front of us, and we're like, wow, we actually like, we're doing normal life, man. It's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. I think that's one of the benefits of a background like ours is it gives us a different perspective to like look at people.
Right.
Like, I don't know how you feel about this, but I tend to find that I'm pretty compassionate with people because I see who we are as humans, because we know the worst.
Absolutely.
And so when we see it, we're like, oh, okay, we're just being human.
Absolutely. I think that I would agree with that completely. And, like I'm always telling Chelsea, I'm like, I can't judge anybody, not because I don't want to, which I don't, but I've done so much stuff, seen so much stuff, and been through so much emotionally and physically even, that I just, I look at people and I never judge them. I think when you get past, because it's in us all, like to judge, it's like probably a natural instinct for protection. But I've noticed that when I stop judging, I'm in that compassionate state, because if you don't judge anyone, what's left but compassion, or trying to understand that person's situation. And the massive drug use has helped me to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to judge anybody. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's like you can't go back in the past, but it has benefits on how it frames our worldview. And so what was the big shift? Obviously, we talked about like the divine intervention piece of it, right?
Sure.
So what was it like when things went the other way and life started to change?
Oh man, that's a great question. And thanks for asking these awesome questions. It's taking me in to like think about it.
Well, this is about you.
Oh, wonderful.
So
wonderful. Well, I'm happy to do it with you. Happy to share. So for me, I had a relationship that ended. I started a new relationship, and like every relationship, you think it's going to be everything. You don't go into it you don't half step. And whenever it didn't turn into that, I went back to what was always there. It was just drugs, and had kind of lost my family, and somehow spent all my money, like spent all of it. Couldn't get any more drugs. Max credit cards out, and I remember the girl who had split up at the time calling me and saying, "Hey, can you come to your parents' house?" And I showed up, and they had put a cot in the back for me. In the back, we had a 2-bedroom apartment. It was upstairs, downstairs. And they put a cot in the back with a picture of my kids. And I walked to the back, like a little $400 cot. I still have it. My dad sleeps on it, actually, but it's in the story. And I sat there, and that was probably like 2 or 3 days of being up. And I was just like, this is the bottom. Like, this is rock bottom. Like, I'm an addict. This is like an intervention. I'm so stubborn, and I pay my own bills, so you can't really tell me anything. Or I didn't, at least I thought that. And I was just like, wow. So I knew it was coming to an end at that point, and I started using methamphetamines because it was cheaper. And like you said in your one podcast, where I think just by default, you spend all your money and you go to the cheaper drug. And my parents were addicted to methamphetamines for the majority of my life. Like when I was young, they got out. They're on it for 7 years. They've been clean for 7 years now. So I always hated meth. I hated it with a passion. I was always just like, I hate that drug. It ruined my life, ruined my family's life. And here I was using it. And I remember like, I'm almost going to cry thinking about it. But I remember like people showing me how to smoke meth. I was like, because I was like, I'm not doing that. That's like crackhead stuff, man. I'm not doing that. Like I'll snort it, but I'm not doing that. And I remember doing it and just looking at myself in the mirror. Like if you ever smoked meth, looking at yourself in the mirror and all your life flashing before you, and I'm just like, wow, I'm smoking meth right now in my parents', attic, or not attic, but upstairs bathroom. And I was like, what's going on? Like, what's going on? And I think at that point, that's when I started really realizing, like, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make a change, or I'm going to die trying, one of the two. I was like, I'm either going to kill myself using drugs, which I have tried, or I'm going to make a change. So, and that's where we go into that. So I was like, the first part was, and can I talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first part was, I was like, all right, I don't want to live here anymore. Like, I'm done living here. And that's the thing about drugs. Like, I had kids, I had a life, I had family, I had a sister, I had a, niece, but I was done here, man. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, life isn't for me. I can't handle it. And, I remember getting some cocaine. I had like $4,000 and I bought like, I don't know, as much cocaine as you can buy, an 8 ball at a time, And, I remember just using drugs, and I was at my sister's house, actually. She let me stay over at her house. And I, did so much cocaine, John, that I couldn't do any more, and I was eating it. So I was eating it and snorting it, eating it, snorting, not eating. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but your heart starts beating tremendously. I'm talking like, nonstop. And back in the day, I used to pray to God, I'll make a good way. But this time was different. I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. So I would snort more cocaine. And there's something really, really, I'll never forget that. And I've told the story a few times to you and other people, but when your heart feels like it's about to go in cardiac arrest and you decide to snort some more cocaine, you're like, I'm trying to kill myself. I didn't want to, and in my mind, I was like, I don't want to shoot myself because I have kids. So I don't want them to think that it's their fault. I want them to just think, like, in my mind, I rationalize it by saying, Dad OD'd on drugs, so he wasn't sad. He was just, I thought about that. So I really thought about it. And I remember hallucinating severely at that time. And it was like something came over and it just kept going away. It kept going away. Happened probably like 10 or 12 times. And finally I was like, all right, I think there might be a God. And I'm going to just stop using. And then what broke, the straw that broke the camel's back was I had kept kind of going through this. And finally I had my daughter, her mother and I had split up. So I had her on the weekends. And I was so trashed. She was like 3 at the time. And I was so trashed that I didn't even know she was there. So I was in that little back room, cot area, and I saw the curtain moving. So I was like, I'm tripping, I don't know what's going on, but I've been up too long. And I remember looking, just staring intently. And finally Zoe, my oldest daughter now, she's 8, she popped up in the curtain and our eyes locked. And I just knew, I was like, all right, this is a cycle. My parents did this. I'm doing this. She's going to grow up. She's going to do this. Like, this is what's happening. And luckily I started getting mad. I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm going to fight back. And that's the day that I remember I had to go back out of town probably the next day. So I just held my daughter, we watched movies. The next day I had a little bit of cocaine left and a picture of my girlfriend at the time who had split up and my son. And I remember I was at QT heading back west, like around like Sampson Park, River Oaks area, heading back to Midland. And I looked at the picture, I threw it away, snorted that cocaine, smoked my last cigarette, and went driving. And that was the day I started making a stand, man. And it wasn't easy. By any means, it wasn't easy, because I didn't believe in God at the time. I was just like, I tried to kill myself, won't die. So I guess I'm just going to have to tough this one out. And then, do it for my daughter, do it for my kids, try to, start reaching, trying to do it for the people. We realized really kind of just fighting the person you're supposed to be, I suppose. But yeah, that's roundabout. Yeah, and that was August 3 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago at all. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I find interesting is I remember the day when I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's almost like one of the most clear decisions I've ever made, even in the midst of being high as a kite and all the stuff. Like you mentioned, like you saw her, you locked eyes, and in that moment, it was like this. I had a very similar feeling. Different place, different drug, different age, different circumstance, but it was this moment of like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. And it was that decision you make. You have to make it.
I heard someone recently say this is the difference between a decision and a choice. A choice is just choosing options. A decision is when you choose one over all the other ones you could choose.
Oh, yeah, that's powerful.
So you're actually deciding not to all the rest.
Absolutely.
If you're just choosing, you're giving yourself a chance to go back, right? But when you decide, you've put your flag in the ground and you say that I'm going to do this and that's it.
Right.
You know, and so thanks for sharing, man. That was was real.
Sorry, it gets a little dark sometimes. But,
no, it's people need to hear it, man. Okay. Like this is the type of stuff that changes people because we have a tendency to just walk around like nothing's going on. And people just get used to it. And you'll hear about this a lot when people talk about being depressed.
Right.
Is they feel like they are alone.
Right.
They no one knows what they're talking about, or they're so caught up in just the things that they're doing daily that they never actually touch base with their emotions and what's actually going on. So it's important to hear this stuff. So since then, I mean, so it's almost 3 years ago.
Right.
And now, you know, we're in quite a different place, I would say. So what kind of have you been up to along the journey on that?
First things first, I started believing in God, and then I started, kind of living a life of surrender. I felt like I don't know how to. I've never heard like the audible voice of God. But I'm telling God, I was like, I'm gonna do whatever you ask me to do. I'm gonna give my life to you, and whatever you bring in front of me, I'm gonna trust you and have faith. And it led me to, getting into real estate. It led me into the job I have now. It's just people have just asked me to do things, and I've always been like, whether I wanted to or not, I'd do them. So ended up going to real estate class. Then my buddy asked me to work here at Top Notch Home. Started doing that, and then just getting to help people and meeting people, and and real estate and like home sales. It's a very emotional time for people. And you just got to be even keel. You got to just be, you got to be the voice that's going to say, it's going to be all right. We're going to figure it out. Even if you don't know, it's going to be all right. And then it's also led me coming, here to CrossFit is just, I guess it's just the natural order things, honestly. And it all started from that one day where I was like, all right, God, let's do this. Like, I'm really going to do this with you. And I didn't know, I had nothing else to lose. But these days, life's good. I have an awesome, amazing girlfriend. So Chelsea, gotta give her a shout out.
Coach Chelsea,
5 p.m. And my kids are all healthy. Relationships are awesome. I got one of my daughters full time, and life's just really good right now. Most of these days, I deal with normal folk issues where I don't judge others, be nice. And I love normal life. Get to go to CrossFit, get to be with you guys, be part of an amazing community. I feel like people are somewhat getting to heaven or this or that, but coming from places like we've been, I always think to myself, like, God gave me this little piece of heaven right here, right? And I'm going to be the best, like, friend that can be, CrossFit classmate, coworker, father, son, uncle. I'm going to focus on those things because I can, like, have somewhat of control over those. So I focus on those, and life's been pretty good just doing that, And like you alluded to a little bit about, it's super nice to say that about, me going to CrossFit class. You know what I think about when I go to CrossFit class? I've been doing it since I started. And I told my friends this. I was like, I have 1 hour with these people. Like, I can give them my best self for 1 hour. And like when I see my kids, I'm like, I look at life as like, you only get these moments. So, every night I see them, 3 or 4 hours, like I can give them my best self. I can give you my best self. And so that's why I go into that. It's not just about motivating them, but it helps me to be kind. Like, it helps me to makes me feel good to be loving to them. That's why I love CrossFit, because it's, at a gym, if I'm rooting for somebody, they might get mad. But it's at CrossFit, if someone's like cheering for you, like, hey, you're at CrossFit, like that's going to happen. Like, I'm going to want you to PR.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and I were at a wedding, and what we say, I was talking about something. I was like, that stuff's just like going crazy, like all these things. And like, I just have this phrase I tell myself, I'm like, this is a good life.
It's a good life.
It's a perspective. And cause there are some days I'm like, cause here's the reality, and you may agree with this. Like, from where I was to where I am now, when I said, you know what, because I had a similar moment where I was like, God, I'll just do it. I just know that if I do whatever you ask me to do, I'll be okay. I won't be here.
Right.
I could not have imagined what the following 12 years was like.
Right.
Like, I couldn't even come up with this. Like,
You
this,
couldn't write it.
I couldn't even like create this in my mind with any ounce of creativity that I have. So it's like, there are days where like stuff be going crazy, but I'll just stop myself and be like, it's a good life, man.
It's a good life. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great perspective.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the cool part about CrossFit is like, you know, we do hard things together and we come out and are like, all right, cool. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's a good life.
It's a good life. Yeah. And that's why I don't know. CrossFit's it's so cool. Cause like, if you just give it that 1 hour, like nothing's going to touch you the rest of your day, especially the like 5 a.m. or 6 a.m.ers. They're a different breed of human. You know, I actually went to a 6 a.m. class and I just like passed back out afterwards. I can fall asleep after workout. Yeah.
I can't, man.
Yeah.
I do 6 a.m. and I'm like, I'm awake for the rest of the day.
Really?
Yeah, dude. I'm cruising. Like I'm like that's like the runway moment. Like you take off and you're up in the air, and the rest of the day I'm up in the air.
Really?
Yeah.
I love the evening workouts. I love the heat. I love the sun.
I like to shut down with it. I like to get to the end of the day, have done everything, and I'm like, all right, cool. Now we get to party.
Yeah.
That's how I like to think about the evening class.
Yeah. That's exactly. I get off at 5, pull in, try to be right at 5.
He literally works right down the road.
Yeah.
And then he gets out at 5. So he comes in on his motorcycle, hops off, changes like Superman as he walks through the hallway, and then walks out to work out.
Yeah. That's a good life.
So so you're in real estate, you work at Top Notch Homes.
Right.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay. So, as a realtor, I'm just like any other realtor, just doing, you know, residential, you know, buying and selling homes for, I really do that primarily for like close friends and family. And at Top Notch Homes, they're actually a manufactured home retailer. So it's like a mobile home, but now they call it manufactured home. But I work actually for 3 developers now. So it's like owned by one guy and 2 other guys. And what they do is they'll buy like 100 acres or 10 acres or just 1 or 2 acres, and they'll develop them, they'll clean them off, put in a manufactured home, and then we sell them to the public. So with like FHA, USDA, and VA loans. So we've been fortunate enough to help a lot of people out. It's a good life. It's a good life. We should start building homes soon as well, just because not a lot of folks want to be in a mobile home. That's okay. We want to just supply homes for whatever a person wants, honestly. Like if you want to, I've never been the one to discriminate. I've been homeless. I live in a manufactured home now. I've seen people living in them. I live in a normal home. I live in an apartment. And folks are always asking what I like. And I say, I like what you like. You know, and most of the time it's what your budget likes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so hopefully we'll get to building homes soon. I've been doing that for 2 years now. It's a pretty intense job. It's 'cause you deal with people's like income and lives and
Yeah, you touch personal details.
very personal. And I've learned that I love it. God's put me in a spot where I tell people at work, I'm not allowed to have a bad day. I'm also a sales manager now too. So like my mood is everything. And I do everything to, you know, make sure that, you know, my peace is there. My happiness is there. Like have people before tell me, Kim actually, from 5 p.m. she was like, you were just such a positive person. You know, you're the positive person I've ever met. And I told her, I always say the same thing. I'm like, it's a lot of praying. Like it's continuous. But that's just how they made me. That's just how my journey took me. And I'm happy with it, you know?
So this was one of the, obviously your story I want to hear and people to hear. But sales, you know, we talk about sales a lot, right? And kind of most people, they hear the word sales and it has a connotation to it. And it's normally the slimy car salesman.
Agreed.
Who's about to take your money for their gain and give you something that's going to break down. Right. And of course, we're both in sales, and we realize that that's really not the case. 100%. You know, what would when you describe what you do, you're a sales manager, but what do you actually do? Like, what do you help the other salespeople, or like what do you help the company do?
So for me, and the owner's done this before. He's like, hey, we're going to feed off your energy. So the first things first is I like to check on people. Like I look at them as normal humans. I'm like, hey, you know, how you doing? How you and your wife good? You and your kids good? Are you good at home? If that's cleared, okay, awesome. So now we can talk about, you can discuss whatever we need to that's going to help them help themselves and help the company. And that's always, like you said, you know, it does revolve around sales, but for me, I focus more on fundamentals. I focus more on like procedures that we put in place to help them succeed and help the customers. But more than anything, I think I like to help with customer relations and customer service. So getting into real estate and getting into home sales, I've found that, and this might be for all sales, but essentially it's if you put your client's needs above your own, above all else, your needs will be fulfilled beyond like your wildest dreams. And I may have heard that in passing somewhere too. So someone looks at it's probably quoted from someone really much smarter than me. But that's what I do. I try to focus on that, and I try to teach those guys and women to focus on that. And, you know, some days it goes smoothly. Some days it needs more attention than others, but each day we're going to do it, you know? So that's mainly what I do. And it's kind of, I'm more now as a manager, I'm kind of a check and balance, you know, like, hey, did you call your leads? You know, hey, let's do this. This is how, okay. Hey, we're taking applications this way now. And then on cause I still sell as well. On that side, it's just, I treat everyone like as if I'm a realtor. So it's just, hey, come on in. Let's see how I can best help you.
Yeah. And he said it in there, but yeah, the best salespeople are focused on the results that the customer wants. You know, like they're not there just to put something in their pocket. Those people usually don't last long. They don't, you know, like they'll get excited for a little bit, but they're not there to like actually help people.
Agreed.
You know? So like in general, like you're talking about this when you're working with someone and they're sharing you personal details and stuff like that, like, do you see much difference between like sales, mentoring, relationship, or do you find that they all kind of fall under or integrate with each other?
I definitely think they integrate with each other. I find that the difference is going to be, you know, you have an objective for all three of those things, and ultimately it's the common factor is you. So I feel like in sales or in mentorship or really in anything, especially with work, it's going to be, I think lately I've been adjusting to new changes, but I'm learning that as much as you're helping others and getting things for the people, you're also evolving. You're also learning new skills, and you're learning always how to communicate with others. And I think that just talking to you now, I'm realizing that I need to be a little more patient with myself, but I think that ultimately you're turning yourself into something that you have no idea what you're going to be. And then the next person gets to benefit from that, whether it's your, you know, coworker or one of your employees or one of your clients. I think that is, you know, as long as you immerse yourself in it and keep working through it, it's going to get better. But yeah, I think it's all connected for sure, because you're the one doing all of it, you know, so it has to be, because you're the main mechanisms that's, you know, taking all these roles, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned you're the person, but like the energy, you know, like how you show up, and that's always, to me, how you show up is a result of your current state, which is a result of the things you did to get into your current state.
Agreed.
You know?
I love that you say that, by the way.
Huh?
I love you say that it's about how you show up.
It's about how you show up, you know, and it's like you choose. And you said it earlier, like you choose, like I'm gonna give my best self. You know, like that's a choice. It's a choice of how you want to do it. And most people sometimes like that they may be in a mood, but you can be in a mood but choose to show up a certain way.
Agreed.
And the more you practice that, and I think that's where confidence in sales comes from, is you practice showing up that way, even if you don't feel that way at the moment. And then you learn the skills. But if you don't show up with a certain type of attitude, it's very hard to even utilize a skill.
Yeah, I love that. I love that I use it in fatherhood. I use it in friendship. I use it in every relationship where luckily I have the clarity, you know, the grace to be like, okay, something's weird's going on inside, whether I didn't sleep enough, whatever the externality that thinks it's going to try to, you know, change my mind. And like you're saying, I'll make a conscious decision and say, okay, I'm going to put intention and effort into recognizing that, but this is how I'm going to operate regardless of that feeling. And then it's crazy, man, do it to others, because you might be feeling something inside, and if you go and you project that, now you got, you know, an issue. But if you project like the opposite, you know, that you're going to feed off of them, and then before you know it, your mood's going to be shifted, and you're going to be in a state where you're happy, you know? Yeah,
because I mean, based on where we come from, it could be a lot worse.
Oh man.
Yeah, it could be way worse, you know. So what, so you've been through a lot of stuff and all that, and we see all type of like success culture, hustle and grind culture and all that stuff. But like you mentioned things with like being present and showing up and giving people your best hour. Like, I mean, what would you recommend if someone's like, it could be if they're in addiction or not, it could but they're just not happy with life right now. Like, what would you tell them to focus on?
And this is just from my own personal experience, but the first thing I'm going to tell them is God. I would say that for sure. I'd say focus, get right with God. Whatever that means to you, like whatever that means to you, get a little bit of that in your life, because you're probably going to need it. Or I know you're going to need it. And the second thing is, I would say my mom taught me that. She's like, find things you love doing. That's the second thing, and start doing those things, and keep your mind off of whatever it is that's negative in your life. So now we got God. Okay, solid background, solid foundation, things you love doing, and then if you're lucky, you find some people you love doing it with. And I think that if you can, find what you love doing and then do that for a living. But that's like happiness right there. By natural order things, a girl or a boy shows up, you start living life, and then just I think especially in addiction or going through anything, you're going to be focused on yourself, really focused on yourself, and that's okay. That's just kind of how we're made. But you got to make an effort to be sacrificial in your love, like be giving, be loving, no matter how you feel. And I think that helps me from being self-centered for so long. Just regardless what's going on, I can give you a couple hours of unconditional love. It ain't gonna kill me.
Yeah.
But I would say those things. That's what has helped me. And just talking to you now, I realize that's conditioned me to be the way that I am now. Was first fighting addiction, and now just trying to love unconditionally, love others, and I guess it's kind of filling me up with the good light versus the dark.
Yeah. I do you know who Lecrae is? He's a Christian rapper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I've heard of him.
In one of his songs, he talks about being responsible for all his failures and none of his successes.
I love that.
So it's being willing to like own up to what you can change, but being focused on serving others for the sake of just doing it for other people.
I love that.
It's not because of me having my successes. It's because I do it because it's a part of who I am.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I think from men and women that I've met, because I've met so many great people, through faith and just living. Most of them, they seem to the world materially successful, but a lot of times it's just like they're just getting out of the way of who God wanted them to be, And I think too that suits even if for any situation, just get out of your own way a little bit. God's gonna give you some things to do. If you can, muscle up and get through them, you're probably gonna be better off for it in the end. You're either learning a skill, or you're giving to somebody that needs it, or you're just not thinking about yourself. If all you think about is yourself, it's gonna get pretty rough in there.
That is so true, man. That's where we're gonna end it, man.
Sweet.
If you're only thinking about yourself, it's gonna get tough.
Agreed.
Because that's what addiction really is.
Agreed.
So, Zach, absolute pleasure having you today, my man.
Absolute pleasure being here.
And if you guys want to get in touch with Zach, you can just come at 5 p.m. at CrossFit OYL.
5 p.m. CrossFit OYL.
Are you on Instagram? I don't think so.
No, I have a Facebook.
He does have Facebook. And but definitely watch this one a couple times. There's some good stuff in there. Appreciate having you here, Zach. Appreciate you being authentic and sharing that.
Yes, sir.
It's how we change the world, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, guys. We'll see you later.